So, great welcome to you all to this session 3.3 on city policy and planning initiatives. Still waiting for one of our speakers, but I think we will just start quietly. Kind of on time, actually.
And one of the
speakers is here. So.
My co-speaker is still missing.
Yeah, okay. You can just sit down and you will be number 3 today.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Great. We just had to switch the order of our presentations, but we will manage fine. So my name is Oddrun Helene Hagen. I'm from the Institute of Transport Economics in Oslo, Norway. I'm really happy to moderate this session and look forward to great presentations and great discussions. We're going to have 4 presentations today, and they are all present here, but we also have a small audience joining us online today. So we will see if they maybe also have some questions. We're going to do one presentation, take the time to have some small clarifying questions, then the next clarifying questions, and so on. And then I was thinking we could set the time for a bigger discussion in the end. I think we will manage fine the time for that. So the topic, city policy and planning initiatives. So walking in our cities happens by default, but not always by design. Around the world, we find that more and more city administrations are making conscious decisions to give pedestrians priority. So in this session, we are going to explore the key elements from funding to integrated planning and overcoming the challenges that city officials face when facilitating walking. So we're going to have 4 presentations. We're going to try to understand pedestrians and walking at the system level. We're going to learn about the national level and how they facilitate walking initiatives, and also to the city level. And with the changed order here, we're going to start at the city level. We are going to start with Ghent and Evelyn van Hooydonk. Try to get that correct, probably not. So Evelyn, a warm welcome to you. You are working at a pedestrians team at the mobility department of the city of Ghent, and will present how you are trying to turn from a cycling city to a walking city, focusing on pedestrian routes and screening of these routes. So a warm welcome to you.
Okay. Good morning, I'm Evelyn. I work for the mobility department of the city of Ghent. And I will tell you what we do. I will start with a little bit of history about the idea, how we came up with the idea. In 2019, the policy makers of Ghent decided to make a real pedestrian plan. The mobility department of Ghent started in 2020 by making a plan by my colleague. And while doing so, she discovered, among other things, that our database, and here you see a screenshot of it, didn't contain or capture the information that we need to really improve the situation of the pedestrian in Ghent. You cannot see the actual width of the footpath here. It's impossible. It looks like it's possible, but it isn't. You don't see all the obstacles. You don't see the accessibility of the pavement or the crossings. And we don't have an overview of the availability of benches in our city. Our team started to make little improvements in the city. But they soon discovered, okay, actually we have to think in routes and not in points, making certain zebra crossings safe, but more thinking about how can you walk to school or to a bus stop. And that's how we came up with the idea of screening routes in Ghent. We screen 6 routes every year. And I use an app, a really simple app with a tablet. It's called Qfield. Some of you will know it. I don't know. It works on geolocation. You can adapt it easily. You can add the categories for the information you want to add. Here you can see a route I did from the local hospital in the north until the city center. And all the points, the little dots are actually obstacles for the pedestrian. I categorized them more or less like this. The narrow footpath we take as a criterion 1.5 meters wide. Also, we note all the obstacles if it makes the footpath too narrow. All the obstructions, you have a lot of. Then we will assess also the accessibility of the pavement, the surface, but it also shouldn't be too sloped. And then the crossings, they should be safe and accessible. And all the other elements, bins, trees, gardens that are not maintained, everything. For a walk of 20 minutes, this is more or less, it's more, I think, I take 2.5 hours to note everything down. Afterwards, I analyze everything and I make a shift between short-term adaptations, which can easily be rectified, and the long-term when we do a full reconstruction of the roads. I learned already 2 big things. One, to make such a route, to improve such a route, we don't only need our road construction department, but we need 6 other departments in our city. They all have a responsibility towards our public space and therefore have an impact on the accessibility and the comfort of our pedestrians. Think, for instance, on the department who handles the permits for terraces. Then, secondly, I will show you some examples from it. We learned how to advise big projects and reconstructions of the road much better from the point of view of a pedestrian. And we started with posts, poles, ballocks. I think every city has this problem. We have a lot of them. And here you see a perfect example of how they are not aligned with each other. Like, for instance, for a blind person like Edith, this is a problem. She can't navigate through these obstructions. The bigger problem is we can move the ballocks or the normal posts, but not the ones who are connected to the electricity grid. You can only move them by a full reconstruction of the road. This street will have a full reconstruction, so hooray. But we have one problem. The big blue pole, you see it, is a tramline post. They will stay. So we asked by the design plan, put them on the plan. Normally we don't do it, but then we can more easily decide, okay, a crossing should be there, the tree should be there, and that's on the other side. That's one. Then, you've seen it already. We like to put extra elements in our city to have like more enjoyable and livable city. Like terraces, some green, some lighting, some bicycle stands. But they lead to a slalom movement. And at best, it's just annoying. Here you can pass by with 2 persons, you just have to walk. And then you're fine. But if you're in a wheelchair or you have a walker, it's impossible to cross. In this street, we will not have a full reconstruction, but we are all working together to unclutter the streets. So we will put all the elements on one side of the pavement, and we hope to have a nicer street and one straight walking line. For us, when we see a new plan, we will be scrupulous about the straight walking line for a pedestrian and the readability of the street. So you have like an overview. Here you lose the overview. The tree should be enjoyable, not annoying. Then the crossings. This is a typical crossing in Ghent. It's unsafe because you can't really see as a pedestrian, you can't see the traffic coming. It's not really clear on the picture. It's also inaccessible because of the ballocks, of the level difference with the drain, and of tactile paving that's missing. In our city, we automatically, when we do a maintenance of the roads or a reconstruction, we will add automatically tactile paving and lower the curb, but sometimes it still leads to this. If you're in a wheelchair, it's inaccessible. I will now, like in short term, remove the ballocks and make sure the pedestrian can see the traffic when they want to cross. And then in some points in our city, we have way too narrow footpaths. Here you can't walk, let alone have a talk. We believe walking has a big social component. So in advisement on big projects, we will of course ask a wide enough footpath so you can walk with two, like 1.5 meters. It's really enjoyable for two persons walking next to each other, but also for people in a wheelchair. It's enjoyable. But we also will ask on a regular basis, like benches or some green. It's not a luxury, it's actually nice to walk down. Here it's impossible. We try to widen the footpath. But yeah, it's impossible. The people don't want it. They like to drive the cars through this street. Because if you want to have a wider footpath, you will have to move parking. You will have to make one-way streets. But sometimes people don't want it or not ready for it. And this is such a case. By screening every route, we will also hang a Piro box. I don't know, some of you might know it. It's like a people counter with infrared lights, and they just count who passes by. Here you have the counts of 2021. The yellow and the blue one are in our city center. The other ones are the routes outside of the city center. It's a big difference. By counting now and after we adapted those little changes, we want to show by just making little adaptations and improve the situation for pedestrians in those streets that it will increase the number of them. We hope we can make a case. I would like to end with our complete pedestrian plan, because screening our routes is not the only thing we do. The screening of the routes is interconnected with a lot of actions. But we brought the poster. You can get one if you want. And I would like to invite you all to have a talk with us about some actions, for instance, about our about developing a pedestrian network in the city. We would like some inspiration. And I hope by just going out on the street, I inspired you to take the point of view of a pedestrian. If you walk through the city and you just stop every time you see an obstruction or it's too narrow, you learn a lot about what a pedestrian needs. So I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Evelyn. Anyone who wants to ask a question? Yeah, we have someone in blue shirt there.
Yeah.
I'm the guy in the blue shirt. Thank you for that. I have a morbid fascination with exceptionally narrow sidewalk pavements. And wonder how the hell they were ever built that way. Do you have any insights as to how the one that you showed us was ever put in line?
Yeah, because we have these technical, how do you call it, handbooks. And in those technical handbooks, there is citation of like you can have a footpath of 1 meter wide for a length of 10 meters, and that's allowed. So sometimes it's an allowed situation, but you kind of think how it's ever been allowed anyway. So we're trying really hard to update this technical handbook. Yeah. So I think some cities still have those kind of requirements or technical details. Yeah.
Hi, Mary from Walk21 advocate for pedestrian.
Right.
My question was Ghent is big. How did you choose those 6 streets specifically? Or what did you manage here? Is it a strategic vision or like linked to pedestrians'
Okay.
voices? Or?
The first routes I did in 2021 were decided from our policy makers. They wanted all the routes under the church, so the central routes in neighborhoods. In 2022, this year, we decided to have like really busy streets. I showed some examples from shopping or with public transport. And for next year, we will have like the input from the pedestrians themselves. Yeah.
Yes, in the back.
Hi there, Alan Martin from Dublin. Just wondering if that is that the public or are you approaching a certain number of pedestrians to be feeding into that regularly?
No, it's me who notes everything down. So, but we also have like these systems where the pedestrian himself can say this pavement is broken or this post is in the way. Yeah, or the crossing is unsafe. But we would like, of course, we just started with the plan. It's new. Of course, we want to integrate it during time. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, Evelyn. I think we will save the rest of the questions for later.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's funny how these pictures could be taken in any city. We think about home, and yeah, we have seen this. So let's move to the second presentation and the city of Rotterdam. So Rotterdam has put the pedestrian at the top of the mobility pyramid. And we're going to hear about how the city used data to construct pedestrian priority maps to present where and why large-scale pedestrian improvements are needed. So our 2 speakers from Rotterdam are part of the multidisciplinary team working on the pedestrian agenda. So please welcome Andrea de Wit, who is a mobility advisor, and Meren Scheltama, an urban planner.
Well, good morning to you. It's funny, the question you asked about why we have a narrow footpath has to do with this priority, because we gave priority for a long time to cars, and that's the first thing we do when we make a street or road. We're going to tell you about a way of using data to get opportunities and challenges for the pedestrian. And I'm doing the introduction. We're going to tell us more about the maps themselves. Well, you know us. But first we have some things for you. What is your priority? Do you want sunshine or rain? Sunshine. We go for sunshine. Joe, for you? Okay. This is a difficult one. Who goes for water? Especially at this hour. With the conference dinner yesterday. So a lot of people go for water. And this is exactly what we ran into when we were talking about shifting the pyramid. Because people are going to ask you, where do you want to have the pedestrian? And we can't start everywhere. So where do we start first? So, and how do you work together with other goals? So we came up with this priority maps, and it was because we have two strategies we handle in Rotterdam. My colleague José, she was in the plenary session yesterday. She does the local improvements, defining the local improvements together with citizens. So that's a more bottom-up kind of way. We do a more top-down way, method, and that involves the entire network. So for us, it's highlighting the pedestrian point of view on a network scale. This is what's inspired by a picture of Marco de Brommelstoet. We took a Rotterdam example, so this is where lies the priority. You see all the green, that's the walking people, and the red dots are the cars. So that's what we wanted to do. And we did it with a multidisciplinary team, also working in a COVID period, as you can see, most of the time. And we did it evidence-based and data-driven. Because we have data, we lack a lot of data, but we have data in Rotterdam. Objective data, traffic accidents, casualties, and we have subjective data as well. This map was a research done. People could place a heart where they like to walk or dislike to walk. So that's all information you can use. And then afterwards, we asked expert judgment on different fields, how they look to these kind of ways, and to create a strong message and vision on how to make a difference for pedestrians. Okay, Neil.
Thank you. So, as Andre said, we're building our pedestrian agenda. And for us, the last Walk21 conference was an important moment to create that momentum and attention for the pedestrian within our city departments and the departments that we work with. And so we have set ourselves a goal that we love the topic of walking because it's so integrated. It's very broad. You can connect it to different issues. But we thought we also need to be very clear what are our four main goals that we want to address walking forward. So we identified these four themes as the ways we think we can make impact for pedestrian in our city in a holistic way. It addresses different aspects. So the first is children going to school safety. This is very important for the livability of the city. And it's also very important because if you're active from a young age and you feel that confidence in your mobility, this is something you carry forward. The second is, we know walking is healthy. We had a wonderful session about this yesterday. But how healthy are our streets to walk in? Let's analyze this, look where we can improve. The third is, how do we create more streets for people? Where are these chances for transition? And the fourth is public transport accessibility. Now, we did a lot of analysis about these. So I'll take you through them quite quickly. I hope the information density won't be too high, but we're happy to answer questions after. So the first map is about children going to school safety. So in Rotterdam, we have a traffic safety prediction model. And behind the green line, it says high. I'm part of that move. High risk roads in Rotterdam, just like cars. Sometimes lines are unpredictable. So we have a model that shows different categories of risk on the road. It has more than 50 different factors in it. So it's car speed, design of the road, amount of users, the way cross sections are designed. And categories 4 or 5, the highest risk categories, are the ones we looked at. Then we combine that with a clustering of issues within a 200-meter buffer around a primary school. So the issues we clustered were, what are the accidents with children, specifically under the age of 11, and 3 subjective data inputs, where there's been questionnaires to Rotterdammers. One of them Andre mentioned, the heart survey. Where have Rotterdammers told us we feel unsafe? The traffic situation is unsatisfactory. So we clustered these issues together, and we came up with a school unsafety score. And basically, the higher the number, the better it gets, the more signs of risk around that area. So when we put that data together, we combine it on a network level to see what are the high-risk roads, so 4 or 5 category roads, around these 200 meters around schools. So what you see in red are those unsafe roads around schools where we believe we need an action plan to address these issues. In blue, you see the appointed safe and healthy streets. And our city council agreed to transform these streets, which are all 50 kilometers per hour now, to 30 kilometers an hour, to improve the city safety. This is a very good plan. You see that some of these also align with the ones that we identified. But we noticed that if you look from a pedestrian perspective, instead of a general traffic safety perspective, other things come up. So we think it's very important to look at how to really design these streets on a network level. Our second topic is how healthy is walking in Rotterdam. So this has to do with environmental quality. We know that if there's less than 30% green on the street, it gives you a lower experience, it's less attractive, and also the streets have less contribution to, for example, stress reduction, which is important if you're living in a busy city. We also know that once noise levels rise above 60 dB, that's bad for your health. We also know that above 45 degrees, so this is, I don't know the term in English, gevoelstemperatuur, this is your perceived temperature level, that people experience significant heat stress. So we wanted to see where are these three factors bad altogether. Then we came up with this map. So in red, you see the unhealthy streets, which score badly in all three aspects. So too little green, too noisy, too hot. Then we looked, what can we say about air quality? So we looked at the busyness of the streets. So in blue, you see the streets where more than 10,000 cars for 24 hours drive. And in dark blue, where the number is doubled. So this also gives an indication of air quality, bad air quality, and also a barrier function on these streets. And something we can talk about in another presentation is our pedestrian network analysis. So we projected this analysis on our most important streets for pedestrians. And you see that around 60 kilometers of our network scores really badly. This is around 6% of our total network, because that's 940 kilometers, so it's pretty long. But you see in the center area, it's a significant amount of streets. So we think this is a very important thing to address. And what Andre mentioned, we are looking how we can incorporate other goals. So I also previously worked in climate adaptation and biodiversity. So these are streets where it's also a no-brainer. How can we make them cooler? How can we make them greener? How can we make them nicer? So our third topic is about more streets for people. And this was a design thinking approach, thought of our colleague of ours, Christopher. And he had asked us a very interesting question one day. He asked, where do we have space for all these transitions? We have a lot of ambitions we want to fill, but where do we actually have the space to do something about it? So we looked at where is the amount of space right now taken by cars and actually needed by them, not in proportion to the amount of total street space. And when we look at total street space, we mean like from one side of the building to the other side, everything in between, that public space. So we found that where the lane width divided by the street width, and then you times it with the amount of cars, is not in balance. So the user balance is low, as you see on the upper slide. There's chances of opportunity because actually the traffic intensity is low, and you do have a lot of space to do something different. So we came up with this map, and what you see here is green lines are places where you have space, and you have chances due to less intensity to transform the street. Yellow, we also have chances, but it's more based on your ambition because the car frequency is higher. And red, these are spaces where you have little chances unless you have a transition. We're not saying you shouldn't do it here. There are actually some important streets in Rotterdam that are being addressed that are red right now. But this will mean a fight. Yeah, this means you really have to invest in something and need to have a strong story because this is not about just taking some parking space away. This is about redesigning the lanes and really making a different street profile. Our last map is about public transport accessibility. Yes, that's right. We did this analysis, like Andre said before, it came across quickly with the Bureau of Humankind in Rotterdam. And they made a very nice analysis of us of the OV network. And it's actually a good network analysis. So you see the circles are not round. That's because they take into account the street pattern. Because it's very nice to draw a round circle around a metro crossing. But yeah, if you're blocked by a building or a subway or a highway, you're not getting there. So we looked at what is the coverage of our public transport network, so metro, tram, and bus, and what are the accepted distances that people are willing to walk. So this is based on Dutch statistics. Maybe it's a little bit different in Dublin or other countries, but we use 800 meters or 10 minutes walking for a metro, and people are willing to walk 400 meters or 5 minutes to a bus or a tram. And this is healthy people and people that don't have any mobility impairment. So you can imagine that someone that might have this might be willing to walk less far. Then we inverted this map, and then it got interesting. Because you see in red all the residences that don't have public transport access nearby. So not within these acceptable walking distances. And actually, Rotterdam score is quite good. So 85% of our city has good accessibility. So we are happy with that. But of course, as ambitious walker advocates, we want it to be better. So we wanted to see how can we get that higher. And so we're saying that means 50% of the distances in our city are too far to walk, more than these 800 meters. And especially for people with less mobility or elderly, or maybe a pram, or something that makes you able to walk less far or less fast. So we say we need to invest here in optimal walkability, the knowledge we know about Helga Hillenhouter about how to increase walkability, or we need to look at more public transport options or how to find solutions for public transport accessibility. Okay, so that's our story about our analysis of our four, we hope and we think, strong themes for the pedestrian. Our next steps is to combine these four strong stories to an agenda for the pedestrian and what are the specific concrete actions we want to start taking moving forward. And what we like about the way we approach this is that it gives us a lot of chances to work together with other departments. So we work together with the road safety department, the public transport department, both intern and extern. We want to have these conversations. We work together with colleagues like Jose who are working on pedestrian design principles. So what Evelyn was saying about the public space handbook and regulations for pedestrians. Yeah, we had an email about that this morning. So that's ongoing discussions. We work together with the climate adaptation group, the greening the city targets and city developments around the area. Because we think if you invest in walking, you're investing in livability in the city in the broad sense. So we want to take those opportunities. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Are there any clarifying questions? No questions? Oh, there is one.
Thank you very much. You say that there are a lot of departments involved and that you work together with them. Like, what is the mechanism to work together with them? And how do you go from department to department to bring them all together, discuss it, or
Well, you got project groups like the climate adaptation is a project group, so you can show these maps to them. It's easy. So that's organized. We have in the mobility department, we have a sector that's only busy with public transport. So that's also a good way to leave this message and talk about issues and trying to get solutions. And it opened their eyes as well. Because some things you already know from the city, but when you show it on a map, it's totally different experience for them. So there are some organized ways to get the message across, to start collaboration.
Just to add on, what we're also doing is actively, me and Ander together are going to these groups. So there's some exciting developments coming up. Our city center plan is being renewed. There's important investments around the waterfront happening. So our goal was we want to be very early in getting our own priorities straight so that we can knock on their door and be like, hi, we have good ideas. Can we work together?
And what we experienced, because we distribute this map inside the organization and people then get active themselves. They look us up and say, we can maybe use this as an extra argument for our agenda. So you come to us as well.
In back there.
Yes, I have a question about, it was a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. Accessibility is looked at based on proximity. Hopefully, based on my presentation this morning, there's increased understanding around proximity isn't access. You can be proximate to something. Distance is important, but there exists a social reality as well, particularly violence and crime against women in public space, and how you may or may not be considering that as a variable in your data collection to look at the duality of safety as opposed to just the singular focus of safety, which is safety from harm or vehicles.
That's actually a very good question. Because actually we wanted to do this as well. But what you notice is that we lack the data. And that's these kind of issues. So we had to minimize our data to do only proximity, because we could build a story from that. Otherwise, the data was sufficient enough to make a reliable picture of accessibility. So that's the.
So one way we do it in the States, I noticed your partners and law enforcement, they have geocoded data that perhaps you can map and incorporate into your criteria.
That could be also some next steps as well. Get this map, and maybe if the underlying issue is safety, you can deal with it as well. So, but it's a good question.
Thank you. I saw some other hands, but I think we'll wait for them for the discussion in the end. So remember your questions, okay? So thank you, Andrea and Meryl. Thank you. So we are going from the city level to the federal level. We're going to hear about how the Austrian National Action Program, Klimaaktiv Mobil, for active and climate-friendly mobility, and how the federal level supports Austrian cities and regions and municipalities in their actions for climate-friendly mobility. So a warm welcome to our speakers, Mr. Robert Haller from, I think it's the Ministry of Everything. It's the Ministry for Climate Action, Environment, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology. And also Mr. Reinhard Jelinek from the Austrian Energy Agency. Much simpler. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yes, I'm coming from the Ministry for Everything. Well, our minister always say it's the Ministry for the Future, which are important issues. You can see. And after this really impressive presentation of cities, my colleague and I want to draw your attention what can the federal level do. My colleague is from the Austrian Energy Agency. And our program, Klimaaktiv Mobil, was designed as a national program to support, in a very target-oriented approach, support all actors which are causing transport on a daily basis, companies, cities, schools, kindergartens, youth groups, tourism, which is a very important issue. And in the last 2 years, we put a lot of efforts and focus on active mobility. And he's the manager. We have outsourced the operative manager. We in the ministry is the financing and contractor, and Reinhard is the operative manager. So we will have a divided presentation. First of all, we have, you know that we have very ambitious objectives as federal governments. We are responsible. We have to fulfill and achieve these objectives because some of them are really legal binding. And that means the federal government alone cannot do that. You have to be aware that Austria, for example, is a federal country where we have a lot of competencies on the local level and on the regional level. We have 9 federal states. They have all competencies of land use planning, of city planning, of urban design, of active mobility. It's in principle on the local level. So the federal level just makes motorways and airports and railways. That's the old approach. And of course, we have a mobility master plan for Austria. I mean, we want to be climate neutral 2040, which is a very ambitious, 10 years ahead of the EU. And this mobility master plan has these 3 principles: avoiding transport, shifting to better modes, and improve the, let's say, the rest of mobile transport. Now, these objectives have to be fulfilled. And we are very lucky because we have a green ministry. I have to say that we have a conservative green coalition and a ministry for everything in the hands of the Green Party. That means a lot, especially for active mobility, because active mobility is now a priority in the government treaty. It means for the first time the federal level decided, it's not just one sentence, it's 2 pages in this government treaty saying active mobility is a priority. A package for cycling and walking has to be implemented. The master plans for walking and for cycling have to be re-edited, relaunched, and for the first time, walking was mentioned in this government treaty. And also that we have to extend our financing instruments to give also financial support to the local level. So that's was very important because we have to negotiate all the time with the finance minister to get them up. And this, as it is a part of the government treaty, no discussion. So this was very clear. And with this background, we did three priority actions. The National Master Plan for Walking, I presented that yesterday. Maybe some of you have already seen. It's now re-edited, the second edition. The first one was 2015. Second one is now in 2 weeks. Will be launched in 2 weeks at the Austrian National Walking Conference by our minister. So it's a federal plan to promote walking. It's not many countries do have this. And in our existing program, where we're financing also measures for climate-friendly mobility in a wide range, we put a lot of effort to give priority for active mobility, and that means also a budget for co-financing and supporting our cities and our municipalities. The overarching goal is to get away from this patchwork. We have also some nice pedestrian-friendly cities. Look at Vienna or Graz or Salzburg. Very nice, a long tradition since the 70s. But then it's not the mainstream. That's the problem. And we have also the inner cities are pedestrianized, but in the outskirts, it's also everywhere the same. You have the real problems for pedestrians at the outskirts, not the first district of the city, because it's all everybody will do to make it really enjoyable for the tourists. Now, this is the basis for us, 50 recommendations. One of them is the extension of this funding program and the 10 pieces of action. And you see, for the first time, we have also a quantitative target for walking in Austria. The first master plan had only a qualitative target. This time we say, okay, we want to change the trend, which was a decrease since the decades in the normal model split counting, to an increase again. So we will go up, we want to go up to 20%. Now we have 17. So it's on the average level. So it's not city level, average. That means also small municipalities have to make something to get in this direction. And one element of very important instrument for that is the Mobile program. See here, that's the new master plan. Yes, and I give the floor to my colleague who will give you an overview on this program.
Thank you, Robert. I'm happy to give you some insights into the structure and the contents and the approaches of the Klimaaktiv Mobile program. As Robert mentioned, we are working very actively on active mobility as defined in the government project. So basically, we have 5 pillars in the Klimaaktiv Mobile program, which we offer to our target groups. Target groups I will present on the next slide, mainly companies and cities and regions. We have advisory programs, so we give free consulting to the decision makers in the cities, in the companies, and so on, advisory and consulting. We also have a very large funding scheme. So we give financial subsidies for infrastructure regarding active mobility, cycling and walking into the cities, into the companies, and also regarding mobility management. That's our second topic. Regarding general public, we have awareness raising programs. We want to motivate people to cycle. We have large campaigns. We have all this public relations stuff. And we want to educate and further educate the professionals in the field. So, for example, we are now realizing cycling schools for all primary school children in Austria. So we train people to get cycling trainers for children. We also have eco-driving trainers. We have e-mobility experts. So we want to further educate the professionals in the field. And our partners, our companies, cities, and professionals, we want to get an official partnership with them, with a certification and a event with the minister, if she is available, with a handshake and a picture, because we want to spread our partnership with our partner network very much into the whole of Austria. Our target groups, as mentioned, are mainly companies, fleet operators, tourism operators is an important target group. The cities, municipalities, and regions would be a very important one. We also concentrate and focus on schools, on children and youth initiatives, kindergarten schools. course, this is a very important target group, and also the general public, the household and citizens with our campaigns. And we want to engage them, to motivate them to implement active mobility in their fields. Until now, so the program now runs until 2004, so that's a very long-lasting program, and we think this is very important for the success, that it's not just 2 or 3 or 4 years, but it's now running for almost 20 years. And at this time, we have been actively engaged with 27,000 partners. So these are cities, companies, professionals, and this is a very large and impressive number. And this is our value, because without these partners, we can't achieve anything. And we are very much cooperating with our strategic partner, with the federal states in Austria, with the associations of cities and municipalities, with the economic chamber, and with large companies such as the Austrian Railways and the Austrian Post, and so on. Yeah, here are some figures on the results and achievements of Klimaaktiv Mobil. The financial support until 2004 is now almost 170 million of euros. With this money, with this financial support, we were able to create and secure 10,700 green jobs in Austria. So this is also a very important effect, that we support the economy and the jobs. The environment-related investment is more than 1 billion of euros, and we have engaged a lot of children, young people, and these are the competence partners, the persons we have trained and certified. So the priorities of the funding program in 2022 are now, for the first time since last year, walking promotion and walking infrastructure. This is very new, but this can be funded in Austria. Before it was concentrated on cycling, and now we have included walking in these funding options. Bicycle measures, mobility management measures, and also if you shift, if you're a company and you shift to e-cargo bikes and e-bikes, you can get some funding. So here you see the development of the funding of the euros per year. Before the government, which Robert mentioned, in 2019 it was 4.5 million euros for all funding for active mobility and mobility management, and then it's tenfolded in 2020 and 2021 to 40 million euros, and it was again increased by 50% to 60 million euros in this year. And this is quite an achievement for Austria to have that much funding money for active mobility to spend in cities, communities, and companies. Yeah, we have now extended the guidelines until 2031, so that we can be sure that this is going on. This is also a very important background. And yeah, very new is the walking infrastructures in city and regions. I think I will shift to Robert again regarding some examples.
Let's have a look on this on the focus of walking in this program. As already you have seen, an impressive increase of money, and we are now negotiating next year's money for the next 5 years. So we hope that it's even going up because the demand has increased in the last 2 years. So cities have now recognized that active mobility is a priority of the federal level, and therefore we are stimulating a lot of activities in cities on this issue. That was a very positive effect for us. But it's a demand for money, so but it's a luxury problem to get more money from the finance ministry. But this is not the only thing. We have also seen that it's not only money. We have also a problem, I don't know if any other countries, of human resources. The capacity building on people in cities are doing the job for active mobility is absolutely important. And in a lot of countries in the last decades, we have cuts in the administration, which are now is now a big problem. And this hinders a lot of projects applications, because we have now the money, and the city tell us, we have not the staff to do all this, what you want, what you require to get the money. So this is beside funding money, you need also persons which are committed and which are doing that. We have invented so-called walking coordinators. I mean, that's very important. We have, as a federal state, we have a national a task force on walking. We have one on cycling, we have one on walking, where all the federal states have nominated persons in their administration responsible for that. And we have also invited the big cities. So Vienna has a walking coordinator, and now the city of Graz has also established a walking coordinator, which are two ladies, very powerful, and they coordinate in the city all the activities of it. So you'll need somebody who is taking care of this issue besides the money. And we have a national conference every year, so to say, a little Walk21 in Austria, so to say, where all stakeholders come together. The last one was in the city of Salzburg. It was the first time that the region, this is the councillor for the region, presented a regional master plan for walking, and the lady is the vice mayor. They presented the first local master plan for the city of Salzburg. So that was a good achievement. Now, some information about our funding requirements.
Very quick, because
yes,
the time is
the,
up, yeah.
the local master plan was an issue. We thought a lot how to create high quality criteria. And then we say, okay, we want to avoid this patchwork applications, 100 meter here and 100 meter there. And we said, okay, if a city is applying for federal money, then they have fulfilled the condition that they create a local master plan on walking. Because we say we have in federal level, we have such a plan, so the city has also to do a comprehensive strategy. If it's smaller, below 15,000 evidence, it's a strategy, it's a little bit lean. And this is the basis to get the money. And for that, we created a manual to help them how this can be done. This is, I think, was a very clever idea because big demand on this. Now, what are the funding rates? We have a system with a basic rate of 20% for infrastructure plus, and you can then make additional measures, and you can achieve 50% of eligible cost. So if you have more measures, you get more money. If you accompany the measures of infrastructure for walking with measures in land use planning, in urban planning, in parking management, so this push measures, then you get even another bonus. And if you make a sum, you get also a bonus. So you can allocate up to 50% if you have a real comprehensive plan in your city. This at the beginning was criticized a lot because they say, oh, we cannot fulfill those criteria. But now we have seen it's possible, and we have this is the famous table where you then can see how you get from 20% to 50%. So you can add another 15% if you make additional measures in infrastructure, another 10% if you make measures in spatial planning, another 10% if you make a sustainable mobility plan, if you make awareness raising, and so on. So this was the idea was to give an incentive, make comprehensive concepts, so apply them for funding. And now we have, after we started in April, we have now already 10 applications and 10 local master plans on the way. So the demand is there. And big cities, smaller cities are amongst them. And some examples, a smaller city in Syria, as an example, 8,000 inhabitants for the first time. They think on pedestrians. So I think it was really, really nice to see. And Vienna is now doing Vienna has 23 districts. All the 23 districts are now undergoing, with support of the city, establishment of district master plans for walking. So that's the Maria-Hilfer-Straße, and the Graben is not only there, but widespread in the whole city. So this is the way how we do it also for companies. So if a company is doing infrastructure improvements, better accessibility without detours, a shortcut to a public transport station, for example, or similar activities on awareness raising, they also can apply. It's also an additional element. Yeah, that's the Liveable. That's our slogan. Thank you for your attention. Short information in paper. We have brought some brochures. Some we can also download. First, for the book.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. We will wait with questions to the discussions later. Just use a little bit more time than we have, so to make sure that everyone gets the time you are promised. So save your questions for the discussion or for the lunch break. So last but not least, warm welcome to Rob Matters, who's going to present from his large or very small book, good reading for bedtime. He's going to summarize this 40 years of work and his dissertation in 1 minute. So I think you're very well prepared for that. And we really look forward to hear more on your thesis on pedestrian policy, summing up a lot on pedestrians on the system level. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, indeed, it's about summarizing this book. You can imagine that if you want to do that in 12 minutes, you better write it down, because if I talk freely, it will take hours. So, sorry, but I'm going to read my story and not do it freely, otherwise it would take too much time. And it's, you can imagine, it's a big book. It's about a very complex matter. And I'll tell you about that. Oh. You need to take all the spectrum. Well, dear colleagues and friends, although walking is a common but essential form of human mobility, in policy making, pedestrians are largely neglected, apart from some very good examples now shown here. When talking about pedestrian policy making, one can often hear, everyone walks, so how difficult can it be to do the right thing? Jan Gale at the time counters that with, there's much more to walking than walking. My dissertation thoroughly explores how the system for pedestrian works and what steps authorities can take to improve conditions for pedestrians. It shows how it shows how complex the domain is. The presentation will give you an impression of what you can find in my book. Particularly, what hurdles need to be taken to effectively and fairly provide for pedestrians. Fundamental hurdles are lack of understanding of what factors actually affect walking and sojourning in public space. Second hurdle is a majority of people do not fit the profile of the average pedestrian. Lack of understanding of the true status quo of walking and sojourning in public space. That's the third one. And the fourth one is the policy field is not yet adequately endowed to properly deal with pedestrians. Most policy actors are not sufficiently aware of how the system works for pedestrians. One fundamental problem is that common notions and definitions touching the pedestrian domain do not actually lead to the arrangements for walking and sojourning for everyone. Most important notions and definitions in this regard concern pedestrian activities, pedestrian safety, and the main determinants for pedestrian behavior. The common view in research and policy making with regard to what pedestrians do is that they walk from A to B. That is what you see in mobility statistics as well. Additionally, sometimes submode walking, so that's walking to and from other modes, is covered. This restricted definition needs to be amended. To my mind, a pedestrian is everyone who is present in public space and does not move about in or on a vehicle. So everyone that you can see in public space is supposed to be a pedestrian, and you need to take care of that. This means that both circulation and sojourning in public space need to be fully included in the definition. Circulation includes recreative walks, walking the dog, professional walks of postmen and vendors, touristic walks, and excursions on foot, and posting a letter, etc. Sojourning is about waiting for the bus, sightseeing, playing, meeting people, window shopping, etc. Sojourning is similar to what parking is for cars and for bicycles, and cannot be ignored policy-wise. And it is ignored policy-wise because it's not mobility, but it's what pedestrians are. Later, on the status quo, I will provide you some striking figures about this on the national level. The second problematic notion is that pedestrian safety generally is limited to traffic safety, and that is collisions with vehicles. Falls, however, are at least 4 times as frequent and impactful, but usually are not considered in research and in policies. And then there is also security and public safety, where pedestrians are injured or even killed in assaults or other criminal activities. The third problematic notion is concerns the genesis of pedestrian behavior. Usually, only operational behavior is considered, so the actual walking. Its precursors also need attention, so lifestyle, strategic decisions on when and how and where to go, and tactical decisions like orientations, the pedestrian's mood, attention level, and routing. Pedestrian activities can be explained by their needs, their abilities, and the perception of opportunities within a certain societal context. In my book, I present a large variety of models, conceptual models, to explain and predict pedestrian behavior and structure research and policy making. Everyone is a pedestrian. The population of pedestrians, however, is extremely heterogeneous. Apart from healthy and fit adults, there are less able persons like disadvantaged groups, like children, the elderly, physical and mentally handicapped persons, and also temporarily disabled or disadvantaged people, like the injured, distressed or angry people, or people who have a bit too much to drink. This does not match with the common traffic engineers and town planners' ideas on what the needs and abilities and the needed required arrangements for pedestrians are. To a large extent, this is a problem of imagination. Typically, now I'm very black and white, typically professionals are males between 25 and 55 years of age, having a good education, being healthy and fit, having a fair income, and favoring mobility by car. How can such a person imagine what it's like to be a frail 84-year-old woman needing a rollator for walking on a sloping 70 centimeter wide sidewalk? And that is the common situation you have to deal with. Consequently, more than half of the population is prone to encounter mobility problems and elevated risks of being injured and killed as a pedestrian. My work identified ranges of needs and abilities. It also notes the general issues to be tackled and arrangements that need to be offered to take care of everyone as a sample of walking opportunities. I distinguish three main quality levels. In principle, all pedestrian facilities should meet basic walking and sojourning requirements, including reachability, passability, accessibility, and safety. This takes care of the needs of people who do not have a choice but to walk. The second level concerns convenience. This is about retaining people who have a choice. It concerns dissatisfiers like inconveniences and discomfort. Thirdly, for promoting people to walk more and more often, a special level of arrangements normally is needed, and that is about tempting walking and sojourning arrangements. The three kinds of arrangements may include the traffic and physical environment, but also social normative, information, and communication aspects. Insights in the status quo of current arrangements for pedestrians are often very positive. The idea is that pedestrians are properly accommodated. Much better than elsewhere, you normally hear. My research shows that this remains to be seen. It offers a comprehensive picture of what is documented or not about the real status quo. In research information and data, very little is documented about what is offered to pedestrians. It already came about. You don't know where all the zebras and all the poles and all the obstacles are. So that needs to be tackled separately. For instance, no one knows the zebras. I already said that. There are some data available about mobility and safety of pedestrians, but these do not actually cover all aspects and the complete pedestrian population. Some populations are excluded, like foreigners. They are not in the statistics. Tourists are not in the statistics. Working people along the road are not in the statistics as well. So frequent trips are excluded, and that means that a large population is not covered, but still they are there. In order to better cover activities, accidents, assaults, and casualties, I combined the available databases, statistics, and qualitative information. Using the combined sources, I found that main mode walking is good for approximately 28% of all passenger kilometers as a pedestrian, including recreational walk. That's another 23%, and no circulation, including recreational walk, tourists, and professional walker, amounts to 49%. So almost half of all trips are more or less out of the range of statistics. So official statistics cover only a meager half of all pedestrian kilometers. Time spent as pedestrian is the only really valid measure to indicate relative importance of the activities. Sojourning proves to be the most important one, with 42% of the time as a pedestrian. Circulation comes second, with 32%. And submode walking is good for 13.5%. And walking from A to B is the least important one in this respect. So this picture differs very much from what you normally see in official statistics, research, and policy reports. True safety and risk numbers also deviate from the what is commonly realized. 88%, mind you, of all pedestrian casualties are injured in falls. Only 6% of the casualties are injured in traffic accidents, and another 6% in crime-related events. So the picture is totally different from what you normally see in the reports. Traffic safety is seen as the main danger, but it's not the main danger. The main danger is false. And how that actually works, you can see in my book. It's not an easy question to answer because it doesn't concern the usual population. Particularly falls are typically female, older females, and well, it rises with age, and that's not something that's normally seen or recognized. And the big problem in these figures is that they're only available on the national level and not on the local level. So it's extremely difficult to tackle this on the local level. Well, in my book, I have more than 20 tables and 50 graphs, so you can have your joy. Yeah.
And you have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, okay. In chapter 6 of the destination, that is the last chapter, the organization of devising walking and sojourning improvement is captured. It contains analysis of the policy field, policy environment, and the organization of change and improvement potentials. A general conclusion is that the policy field does not seem to be adequately enough regarding supporting walking and sojourning in public space, let alone to effectively promote people to walk more and more often. My main conclusions are: pedestrians are very heterogeneous. The need for facilities vary very much and require customization. Secondly, current definitions regarding pedestrians, mobility, and safety stand in the way of improving walkability. Pedestrians need to be made more visible, both literally and figuratively, in statistics, research, and communications and policy making. Fourth, there's ample knowledge about pedestrians. There's big books about it, and but it's not in the right place. So we need to find ways to do that. Policy actors can adjust 5 kinds of organizational controls: fact-finding, competence building, direction and allotment, communication, and the organization of policy implementation. Well, this was my presentation. I was planning to give out some books, and we sent it up 14 days ago to here, but they didn't arrive. Unfortunately, you have to stick with the link to the thesis, and you can download it for free. It's no problem whatsoever. And we typed out everything on paper, so you can find my presentation there in the same way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob, and I can assure you that it's possible to download his small book. Yeah. And it's a good summary there, so you can start with that. So, are there any questions now for Rob? Yes, I have usually glasses, yeah?
Yeah, I have a question to Robert and Rob. Looking from the national perspective, there's always this competence building, which is missing in the lower levels. And nobody, I don't know any plan to make, I speak with mayors, I speak with mayors, city engineers. Obviously, they don't know anything about walking and the public realm. And I don't have the time as an individual consultant to do this competence building. Nobody. So, do you have like plans in Holland or here?
Well, Rotterdam is a good example of what can be done. They have a bigger group to it, and time is of the essence. If you have personnel and time allotted to them, then they can learn. And that should be more than 3 persons. 2 persons together do not learn from each other. They only fight each other. 3 persons learn from each other because there is discussion. If you can't reach that on the local level or in a smaller municipality, well, the solution would be to upscale it, do it together with some other municipalities, and then you can reach the minimum level of time and number of persons that you need to indeed get more competence.
Just get public jobs dedicated to walking.
Yeah.
And in addition, with all this problem, there are several facets of the problem. What we see is that also the education of the universities, like behind the price and practitioners, we have transport plans, we have no clue how to build or establish a master plan. So we decided to, as our ministry for everything is also responsible for research and innovation, we decided that our ministry made tendering for 2 professorships on active mobility in Austria for universities. The university could apply, and we were totally frustrated. We thought there will be massive applications. Every university wants to get the money for it.
No.
Only 2. So there is one in Innsbruck. Innsbruck will have a professor on active mobility, and now also the Technical University of Dublin. So that was really frustrating, but we hope that Innsbruck and Graz will build up a new education scheme and curricular scheme on the university. The other problem we see is, of course, in the municipalities, especially in smaller ones, they have no clue. This was why we put this manual, the effort to establish a manual, how to do it. It was the first question. We got a lot of telephone calls. You know that you have the money, but how to do it? What to do? Look at your situation in your town. So we give free advice. We give more money to our consultancy programs so that municipality can take this for free. And this is also something what we can do. The third level, I would say, is even more complicated. We have a system, I don't know how it's in other countries. Decisions are often taken or even more complicated by so-called our legal experts. So if a city wants to establish a 30 kilometers of or a shared space or sleeping policemen, all these measures, there is a commission where you have the so-called objective legal expert, and we have a lot of complaints of the cities saying there are some persons hindering walking everything in our city because they say, as long as I'm here, no speeding of, no lowering of the speed. So what we have done, and this is competence of the federal states, not our ministry is responsible for it. So what we have now undertaken is to make training courses with them. So it's now some kind of a carrot to train these legal experts. They know everything. Now comes under from the federal level. But this is really a problem. So that's our experience. Without capacity building, as I said, it's a real problem. That must be put a lot of efforts. New posts in the public administration are still luxury. Still, I will get 2 new posts now after 2 years on the federal level for everything. So at least a small thought.
Okay, so I think we also have a question here from
Yeah. Also for you, Robert Reinhardt, you had on the slide action with enterprise, tourism, or also ÖBB, the train company. And I'm wondering what kind of action do you mean for walking? Cycling, I can imagine, but for walking.
For public transport, it's very important the accessibility of stations. And we have now seen that our federal level is divided into 5 different sub-companies, and there is the EU regulation for infrastructure, special company, and they have own regulations, and in some cases we see when they build total luxury new stations, they forget how to go there as a pedestrian. They make a lot of, barriers. You have to make a lot of detours, and this is one approach we want to in cooperation with the Federal Railways. It's still state-owned, but it makes things a lot easier. It's a question of regulations. Yeah.
Are you already working with them?
Yes.
Okay. Like in what context?
We have a coordination group with our Federal Railways. It's basically on cycling and walking, because we got a lot of complaints. They give billions of euros for new stations, and then you have a worse accessibility than before for pedestrians. So that's and the companies, we have some companies like bigger ones. They build new infrastructure for accessing the plant area for walkers to avoid detours, because sometimes you have a lot of detours to go to the station or to the bus. So these are things which they can do on their own property. For that, they get some money for the infrastructure, or they make an awareness campaign amongst the employees. We have very good examples of that to promote walking to the job. And in cycling, of course, job bikes is a booming factor, like the combination.
Thank you. I think we should open for some more questions.
Yeah.
And maybe someone has someone for Rob as well. So Marion.
Thank you, Rob. Great presentation in 12 minutes.
Thank you.
Achievement of all your knowledge. I'm wondering, competence building, I think it's a very important point to address. And what the thought just came up with me also with your question. I think language is very important in competence building, not only knowing the statistics, but what do we call things? I think it's quite bizarre that we need to talk about shared space when in the 1900s, it was just public space. We have to reclaim it back. And even if we talk about the field of transport planning, we're talking about transport. I know a lot of students that are not interested in this because they don't think it's about people. They just think it's going from A to B. So what are we calling things, and how are we also taking in sociological insights? Yeah, I'm wondering, how do you think we can build onto that part of competence?
Spread the word. You have to experience. You experience what the issues are, and slowly spread it. What I see is 10 years ago, I already preached some of these messages, and now we're 10 years further, and you see that it is spreading, and it is coming about, and you see that more and more people within the field slowly become experts. Well, you don't become expert in a day. In our definitions, it's 10,000 flying hours. That's when you're an expert. And for pedestrians, it's exactly the same. It's much more complex than most people think. And then 10,000 hours of work in this field will get you a firm base to go further. So, in essence, you need to have time to actually work on a subject, and then with some other people, then you can translate and disperse the information. That's how it spreads. It doesn't happen just in one day.
Yes, I saw in your presentation that you had like these 3 levels, like basic requirements. But from my experience, if you make walking more enjoyable, so your 3rd level, you get more awareness and people ask more in your city. So from a city perspective, it's actually it's better to make it more enjoyable, one streets, and then you get more awareness, and then you can say to the policymakers, hey, but our citizens are asking for more in the whole city.
Yeah, up to a point that is true. But the problem is that, as I said, 50% of the persons do not match the average type of pedestrian. And those 50% that are excluded need basic provisions.
Yeah, but I mean, like putting the streets basic and nice, like correct. Yeah, and then
If you
get
can do
more.
it all at once, it's
Yeah.
okay. But in practice, what's actually needed, the basic provisions are always needed. And if you have a choice, if a pedestrian or a person has a choice to be either a pedestrian or a cyclist or a car driver, then you need the attractiveness to get him on board. But if you don't have a choice, the only thing that you really need is adequate facilities. That's what I mean to say. Nothing is black and white. And it doesn't work like if you have the basic provisions, then or if you have attractive positions that will only work if you have the basic facilities. No, that's not true either. Look at recreative walks or longer term or longer distance walks. Those people are active, fit, healthy. They don't need the very basic facilities of no steps, no flat surface, and so on. They can do it on a sandy path. So it's not a black and white question. It's just on the whole, it's that.
Yes, I have a question. I would say, especially for the person trying to make change happen. So people from cities, Mayor Andre, Italy, and change might seem simple, straightforward, and there are sort of implications or sort of barriers, material, but also mental. So it's difficult. So my question is, do you also see a role for experiments, for temporary change to break through? What is that role? Could be that role? I'm just curious about your views.
Good question. Well, we did a lot of experimenting in Rotterdam. We had one of the near Central Station, 2 crossings were made square. So it was, and that's a typical way. And also, funny thing is that during Corona, the COVID period, streets were blocked because we had to arrange meetings and also have terraces. But that gave us an opportunity to create another kind of street. Some people are willing to make this street more livable then. So we definitely try to use experiments, yeah. And one thing, well, on a earlier discussion, what I think is, I think a lot of the people are traffic engineers, so they are quite willing, but they lack the instrumentarium for putting the pedestrian really clear. Because when we restructure, the first thing we do, we are counting the parked cars. That's really logical. Nobody questions this. But they don't have a real instrument to count pedestrians. So we have to develop these kind of instruments, and they have to create an ownership. Oh, now we can make it visible to pedestrians. They're lacking those kinds of instruments for people who are really developing or engineering or designing streets. But it's something I wanted to add.
Putting the people in the model, and Andre is going to give a presentation this afternoon about how to do that better. So,
okay, so then we should all go and see this presentation to learn about. Okay, so it's the end of the time. I should wish we could have much longer discussions, but well, I guess someone or you to get some food. So thank you to the speakers today. It's been a pleasure to be here with you and hear about what you are doing. So thank you very much. Thank you to the audience, and enjoy the rest of the day.